You've spent a lot of time and energy introducing children, pre-service teachers, and classroom teachers to herpetology, which is, of course, the study of reptiles and amphibians. How did that pique your interest? What got you involved in that?
So as a young girl, I was always interested in being outside. And so I grew up in South Florida. And so all day, every day, I was outside, in the woods, in the neighborhood. Anything that creepy crawlied by, I was going to pick it up and look at it. So I've always been kind of an outdoors person. When I went to college, I studied zoology for an undergraduate degree, and then my master's is in biology with an emphasis on aquatic ecology, stream insects and invertebrates. And so when I started my PhD program, one of the professors that I worked with had an interest in herpetology, and so I just kind of bumped on board with that as well. And so I have found it to be one of those areas of biology that intrigues students. It interests them, it piques their interest. In the case of reptiles and amphibians, it's often those kinds of animals that are most misunderstood and feared. And so I find in using those animals to work with students, it's called almost an instant connection that I make with them. So I have found them to be good ways to teach about science.
Fantastic. You've been aided in that endeavor with some big opportunities. In 2011, I know you and a team of professors from other universities collaborated and you received $2.7 million in grants for a program called Herps, which is Herpetology Education in Rural Places and Spaces. What was your role in that and how did that come to be?
So we've been real excited about this project. We ran a smaller project just in one area in the state of North Carolina called Slip Sliding Away. And so we modeled our Herps grant off of that project. And we tried for 3 years, and the third year we received funding. So we're pretty excited about that. It is a statewide project, and it has 4 threads to it. One is education for high school students, informal science education for high school students. And that's a big part of what my role is in the grant, is working with these high school students. We have 3 programs across the state. One in Affluent is a week-long program in the summer. My program is with the Elon Academy and is 4 weeks long in the summer. And then we have another week-long program in the Fayetteville area during the summer. So we have 6 weeks during the summer that we work with a variety of high school students. Then we continue to provide opportunities during the academic school year, follow-ups on Saturdays or weekends during the academic year, where we continue to involve them in scientific kinds of studies and research related to reptiles and amphibians. So the work with high school kids is one part of the Herps grant, and that's a big part of what I do. I lead the Elon Academy project, and I coordinate the aquatic turtle study at the Fayetteville project, the Rockfish project. A second piece of the Herps grant is what we call Cyber Hub. So it's a web-based portal where we share information with the community, and I'm involved in that, and that I contribute pieces of the web-based portal. A third piece of the project is a community-wide annual celebration event, and I direct one of those in Alamance County. So we had one in May of 2012 at Cedar Rock Park on a Saturday, and we'll have another one this coming May in 2014 in association with some other people at Elon University. So we're trying to interest and excite the community about reptiles and amphibians, so I'm involved in that as well. A fourth piece of the project is called Studies, and it's a way that we're trying to integrate high school kids in with ongoing science projects in the state. And so those high school kids come out of our summer projects. And so those that are most interested, we try to hook them up with different scientific projects across the state and get them involved in those. So it's a huge project that is statewide, and there are faculty from 2 other institutions involved in this project as well. There's also a research thread associated with the project, and so I've been involved in that research as well. So my role, to summarize, is I work with the high school kids in our herpetological research experiences. I work with the annual celebrations associated with Alamance County, and I work with the research that's associated with the entire project.
It's a lot in that project.
It is a lot.
What's kind of the bottom line goal for it, and why was it something that you wanted to be a part of?
The bottom line goal is to interest people in reptiles and amphibians and to show how informal science learning can make a difference in the lives of not only school children, but also the community at large. So it is an informal science education grant from the National Science Foundation. So the education is the goal of the grant.
Why did you want to be a part of it?
Why did I want to be a part of it? It aligns with my philosophy of teaching and learning. So I believe that science instruction should be contextualized within the community that a person is related with. So informal science ed aligns very nicely with my philosophy of teaching and learning. And so it was definitely something I wanted to be a part of. The other people that are on the grant I've worked with for many years. We have a good collaborative relationship, and I think that's one of the reasons why we were funded, was because we have a good history of collaboration. So when you find people that you work well together with, it's nice to stay with them and to continue to work with them.
Absolutely. What are a couple of specific examples of some of the work that the students get to do?
So there is a real overlap between my work with the Herps project and my work with the Elon Academy. And so you can't really tease them apart. But the kinds of things that the high school students do is we introduce them to scientific research that's ongoing in the state. For example, the Calling Amphibian Survey in North Carolina is where there are routes across the state of North Carolina that people survey listening for calling amphibians. And we use those calling amphibian indexes to not only identify the populations, but over time to try to understand how the populations might be changing or not changing. And so we involve the high school students in modified protocols that are just like the Calling Amphibian Survey. So we connect them to ongoing research in the state. Another thing that students are involved in is surveying ephemeral pools. Ephemeral pools are those pools that at some point in the year typically dry up, so they are fishless, which is important for breeding amphibians. And so we take students out to ephemeral pools and they survey the population of organisms that are there, and they contribute that data to a statewide database called the Carolina Herp Atlas. So they are part of that project as well. For my students in the Elon Academy, we do a little bit different work in that we've partnered with the museum in Raleigh, specifically the herpetologist collection manager. Alamance County is one of the more poorly documented counties in the state related to voucher specimens with the museum. And so one of the things that my students do is they look at a field guide to determine what reptiles and amphibians are supposed to be in Alamance County, and then they look at the database in the Herp Atlas and they look at the list of museum voucher collections, specimens, and they see there's a big disconnect. So according to the Herp Atlas and the museum, there aren't that many animals in Alamance County. And so what they come to realize is that it's not that the animals aren't there, it's that nobody in Alamance County is contributing in these important ways. So I take my Elon Academy students all over Alamance County, and we are collecting voucher specimens for the museum, and we are also photo vouchering a variety of specimens that are here in Alamance County, and we are contributing that data as well to the Herp Atlas. So whereas at one point in time Alamance County was more poorly documented, before the Elon Academy scholars are finished, Alamance County will be one of the more popularly documented counties in the state. And we're quite proud of those contributions that we're making to science in the state of North Carolina.
That's fantastic. I guess since the Elon Academy and for you, Herps are quite intertwined, in both instances, then how are you seeing an impact on students, and what's it doing to them and their relationship with amphibians and reptiles?
So I started teaching my herpetology course in the Elon Academy 2 years before we actually got the Herps grant. And so once we got the grant, then that's continued to fund the continuation of my course, which is really important for the Elon Academy. But my very first course taught at the Elon Academy, one of the things I did the very first week of that class was I had the students to write a little essay about their first experience with a herp, with a reptile or an amphibian. And I was shocked at the number of students that wrote in that essay that their first experience was with me. And I thought, these are 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that have never been out in their community and picked up a frog or a snake or a lizard or a salamander. And they did so with me. And so that was a shock to me. So I tried to build from that. And so what kids have told me over the years is they are now seeing their communities in very different ways. That very first weekend, I sent the kids home. The Elon Academy kids go home on Saturday and they come back on Sunday. And over the weekend, I got emails from kids that said, Dr. Tomasek, there are frogs in my yard. I hear frogs in my yard. And I know those frogs had always been there, but they'd never noticed them before. So I know my kids are noticing things in their own communities that they've never noticed before. One student that first year was so excited about the Calling Amphibian project that she said, I want to do that for my senior project in high school. So we set up a route in Graham, where she lives, and we ran that route throughout the winter and spring, and she collected data and presented that as her high school project. She went on and received a Gates Millennial Scholarship and is attending Wake Forest as a science major. And in fact, she called me this summer and she said, I'm going on a research project up to Michigan and I need some waders. Can you help me get some waders? So I got her some waders and she's headed up there this summer and is going to do some research work there. So I know many of my students are choosing to major in science. I don't know that it's because of my class in the Elon Academy. I do think it's contributed to how they see their communities, to how they see themselves, and that's important to me as well. Some of my students are not majoring in science in college, but they do tell me that they are now very interested and that herpetology is one of their hobbies, and that for me is equally as important. My goal as a teacher of herpetology in the Elon Academy is not to crank out a bunch of little scientists. My goal is to crank out young people who see themselves and see their community in new ways because of the class that I've taught.
Well, that's fantastic. I know you stay busy. During the past year, you've conducted research through your work with that summer herpetology enrichment program that relates to students' identity boundary work. Now, first of all, for people who aren't familiar with that term, what is identity boundary work and what is the research associated with it?
Great, so let me see if I can explain that. So we all identify ourselves in certain ways, typically related to how we grew up or what our experiences have been. We all identify ourselves in certain ways, and we don't identify ourselves in other ways. And we will say we're not that kind of person, typically because there are walls or boundaries that prevent us from being that type of person. And for many students, they don't see themselves as science kind of people, or they don't even see themselves as outdoor kind of people because of the walls or the boundaries that are there. The research that we've been conducting in association with our Herps grant has been, how do students, high school students in our programs, negotiate those boundaries? In other words, how do they start seeing themselves in science ways and in outdoor kind of ways? So if you think of going to the beach, and if you think of putting your toe down in the water to get a sense of what the water's like to decide if you're going to run and jump in or not, That's the research we've been conducting with our high school kids. In what ways are they figuratively putting their toes into the field of science, in this case herpetology science, and trying it on to see if they might want to see themselves in those new ways. Now again, we're not saying that one single course is enough to push a student's identity completely into a different realm. But we are looking at that identity boundary work and what ways are they negotiating a space that they once thought as completely insurmountable or impassable. Some of the research findings that we're seeing is that one thing that's very important for them is the nature of the community and how the work is conducted, and the importance of a supportive community. We see the kids encouraging each other and supporting each other, and we feel like that's important to negotiating this once identified boundary. The other thing is the kinds of tools that we use and the kind of equipment that we use, and helping kids to negotiate once frightening spaces. So many kids come to our program, particularly my Elon Academy class, being afraid of frogs and lizards and snakes and turtles, and they self-identify those fears. And so one of the things that I do within my class is help them to work through those fears and to see fears as just a challenge or an opportunity to push yourself kind of outside that comfort zone, is what they call it. And so they see my class as a place where they can do that, and a supportive place where they can do that. So it's important for me as their instructor to support them in negotiating those very strong emotional feelings. And we see that as important in identity boundary work.
Have you seen students change the way that they interact or how they're engaged with nature and with animals?
Exactly. I can see them to be less afraid, number one, of the animals, and less afraid of the environment. So many of the young people in my class they're afraid to walk around in the park. And one of the things they'll say to me before I take them on the field trip is, okay, what do we need to be afraid of? And I clearly identify those things that we need to be afraid of. And if I can help them to identify those things themselves and to be cautious of those things, then they're more willing to try it. Holding a frog can be very frightening for some people. And so when I show them the correct way to hold a frog, how to pick up a frog, whenever they know that a frog has a mouth, but it typically doesn't bite, although it could put its mouth on you and you need to be prepared for that, they kind of, with each other's encouragement, they kind of approach those fears. I save snakes for the last week of my class because I feel like I need to build up that trust in me, but by the time we get to the last week of the class, I've taught this class 3 times, this is my 4th time, everybody has always held a snake. And so they consider that a real accomplishment. So I do think they overcome some of those fears. And what I want them to learn and what I encourage them to know is that fears shouldn't be the thing that stop us from doing anything. We should know what we're afraid of, we should learn about what we're afraid of, but then we should try to step through those fears and those challenges. And as young people, when they go off to college, there are going to be lots of fears and lots of challenges. But what I hope they learn from my class is those challenges should just be opportunities for us to kind of show what we're made of, to reach down and dig deeper and proceed through those challenges. And that's what I want them to take as they go off to college as well. So I think they do learn that from my class too.
Aside from what they're learning, when it comes to what you're learning, what do you do with that research?
Exactly. So it's important for me to communicate that research to other informal educators as well as to formal educators, although that's not necessarily my primary audience. So, for example, in the field of environmental education, one of the things that the research literature has identified is that environmental educators can sometimes put an emphasis on the negative parts of the environment, the pollution and all of the bad things that are going along with the environment. Through our research, we're trying to identify the important things that we can contribute to environmental education and how we can help people to overcome their fear of the environment.
What is Photovoice?
Photovoice is a new area of research that we're doing this summer, and so we've just started it with our program a couple weeks ago in Athlone with our week-long program, and with my class in the Elon Academy last week. We give kids cameras and they take pictures, and what we're helping them to understand is that the picture that they choose to take has a voice, to kind of use a definition of the word. And the voice that the picture has depends on the picture taker, the student. So we're having kids to take pictures and then to come back and talk about what that picture represents and how they can use that picture to educate. Now, I teach my class at the Elon Academy, but as I said earlier, the kids go home on the weekends. So what we do is we give them the cameras on the weekend, and I'm encouraging them to take what they learn in my class and look for it in their own communities, and to photograph their own communities, and then to bring it back to my class, and then we talk about it on Monday when they return to my class. So one of the things I'm trying to do is to make connections between Elon Academy and home and the community and their neighborhoods where they live. And so we're using Photovoice to do that. What we hope to do is to continue throughout the academic year to have kids take pictures, and our plan is at our local celebration event in May that we're going to have for them to show those photographs and to educate the community on what they've learned as being part of the Herps project throughout the entire year. So that's the goal of the Photovoice project. And then the research component of that is how do kids communicate what they learn through Photovoice, and how do they learn about the environment as being a part of that Photovoice project.
How will you use what you find when it comes to answering those questions?
Yeah, so we hope to share that again with informal educators as well as formal science educators, so they can use that tool in their own education of young people in the community.
Kind of tying it all together, the Photovoice, the Herps, the Elon Academy, all of it. How do you think the research that you're doing is going to impact how students engage with science in general?
So what I teach at the university is science methodology for those students who are studying to be high school science teachers. So my role in the Herps project in the Elon Academy is in teaching high school students in a very different kind of way. And so it informs how I teach my Elon undergraduate classes as well. It also informs by way of conferences and papers that we present. It also informs other teachers who are teaching high school students as well. So for me, my teaching, my service, and my scholarship at Elon University are all in the same boat. They are multifacets of each other. You can't really separate them out. So it's hard for me to talk about my scholarship in difference from my service, because they go together and that they contribute to my teaching as well. So they're all very tied together for me and my work at Elon University.
You have a book under review right now, right?
Right. We actually have a book. It's not under review. It's in publication.
Oh, fantastic.
So we've seen the edit of the book from the publisher. We've seen our publisher copy. We've seen the front cover of the book. We are very excited.
And it's Be a Scientist, Bring Biology to Life Through Citizen Science, right?
Exactly. It is a book that is targeted at middle school teachers. I think it's also appropriate for high school teachers as well, and maybe some upper elementary teachers, but the book is targeted towards middle school teachers. And it describes and identifies citizen science participation as a way to think about engaging schools children in actual authentic science. So the first several chapters of the book are about how you can participate in citizen science. And then there are several case studies. One of the case studies is about my work with the Elon Academy and the Herps project. And so I identify ways that I've engaged students in science through those case studies. And then there are a series of lesson plans at the end of the book that teachers can utilize to bring into their classrooms to engage their students in these kinds of citizen science participation. So it's all about ways that you can authentically engage school children in scientific projects.
When can we expect to see that in the hands of middle school teachers?
We hope that book will be out in the fall. We plan to showcase the book at our Spring National Science Teachers Conference, which will be in Boston. I believe it will be in March of 2014. So we're going to showcase the book then. We hope the book will be out shortly before that, late fall, early winter.
You've clearly got plenty of different things on plenty of different burners, but what's next?
I have been identified as the next director of the Elon Academy. So in the fall, I will assume the co-directorship of the Elon Academy, and then in the fall of 2014, I will be director of the Elon Academy. So my hat will change a little bit, but it will still be in the same ballpark that I've been playing over these last several years, and I'm excited about that. For me, the struggle with this new position and the challenge will be to maintain those connections that I have with high school students in Alamance County. I think it'll be pretty easy to do, but it'll be something that I work very hard at because I do love the connections that I have with high school students in Alamance County, and I like making those connections with the Elon University students as well.